All right, well, thank you, everybody. I have asked Catherine Smith to do a little wrap-up for us. She is the Assistant Director to the Station Manager for the PNW Research Station, which is actually Oregon, Washington, and Alaska, in case you didn't know. So help me welcome Catherine Smith. Come on up.
Thanks, everybody. I know I'm the last thing between you and rush hour on I-5, so I had tried to keep the story really simple, and then Cheryl, you organized such a great workshop, and the presenters were all so amazing that my simple story got increasingly complicated, and now I have pages of chicken scratch, which I'm going to keep here for comfort, but I won't, make you listen to all of it. So, the story, I'm here, as a PNW representative, but the stories that I've heard since I've come to PNW around social science, which is an area of passion for me. I did the last chapter of my dissertation working with social scientists. I know the barriers to trying to integrate social and ecological science, but the things I've really heard have been organizational capacity, and I heard it loud and clear from our scientists, and then I heard it even louder from the managers that I worked with. So that was, the story I thought that I wanted to tell beforehand, before I came here, how we can make progress and overcome, see opportunities despite the organizational capacity that we currently have. I heard a lot of other interesting ideas, but for the sake of getting you all on I-5, I'm going to kind of keep to the organizational capacity and where the opportunities are in there. So the good news is that, the Forest Service leadership, the agency, not just the people in this room, have really recognized that people and values are central to today's challenges. And while it may not always feel that way, we really see it with the new planning rule, the public engagement guidelines, the regional foresters, new program to, basically start a new dialogue with communities by showing social and ecological value from their national forests. We see that by, the economic diversification efforts at the highest level with USDA. And we also see it in Forest Service R&D starting urban field stations and urban waters partnerships so that we can reach people where the bulk of the U.S. population lives. And we even have, one of the only new centers that I've seen in Forest Service R&D has been a National Center of Excellence. So we are seeing some capacity. It's just nowhere near what we need to address the whole of the challenge. So, I really see the Forest Service stepping up and moving beyond carrying the land to truly embracing the serving the people. But this is, we're at the front end of a pretty steep learning curve and a capacity building exercise to truly achieve a new vision of how we can serve the people. And I like this quote that Diane gave me. Diane Besser? Is she still here? Okay. Hey, nice to meet you. We've corresponded over the phone, but not met in person. But she's doing her dissertation on barriers to incorporating science and management into management decisions in the Forest Service. So this is a great quote from one of the managers that she interviewed that echoes Stanley's point that, we really have moved beyond seeing the public as a problem throughout the agency, but now we're really struggling with how to achieve a bigger vision. So, how do we rise to that challenge? And I think Cass did a great job of describing, it's a really, and I'm now realizing I actually put the wrong version of this presentation on the computer, unfortunately. But, John and Cass really eloquently talked about the wicked problems that we're facing and the lack of organizational capacity that we currently have to deal with it. So what can we do in the short term? And, I think the first thing we need to do is acknowledge that the challenges are real and big. And I want to credit Dale Plana with this great cartoon, the scientist's perspective on how fun it is to try to work in an environment with very limited operating funds and the challenge of getting external funding to do the research that we need to do. So staffing, external funds, there's a lot of challenges and they're real. And initially we said we can do more with less, and I think we've moved off that point, and we're no longer asking people to do more with less. And so we need to have a dialogue about what we can do and have that dialogue in the short term and the long term. And in the short term, we can build relationships, strengthen those relationships between scientists and managers. We can be creative and innovative and network and share strategies for success, what's worked, what hasn't. And in the long term, we need to demonstrate value and cultivate champions so that we can build the capacity, and those champions need to come inside and outside the agency. And so here, this is how I know it's the old presentation. Oops. So basically, continuing to strengthen relationships with the research community. And there's a lot we can do on the communication front. Learning how to talk to this meeting, a great example, and this came out of an innovative idea. Lee Cerveny and her senior leader team partners put together a concept called Be Smart Grants, and this brought seed funding to bring together scientists and managers. And this workshop came out of two innovative ideas that followed each other, that help us learn how to talk to each other, share needs, develop research agendas, and build partnerships. So another interesting example that I heard Lee present on recently, how we can talk to people. So Lee was out in the forest with you recently presented on this, but she was out in the forest with some managers and noticed a homeless camp there, and it started a dialogue. And that dialogue there on the forest led to a whole national assessment of homelessness. So it's just a great example of finding the opportunities to talk to managers in unexpected places and being willing to follow up and see where the research leads. And I think we'll see a lot of that coming out of this meeting. So we need to be creative in identifying resources, because right now we have we have very talented capacity in our staff, but we just don't have enough people. It's even more acute on the management side from what I've heard. So we need to be creative in staffing. And Forest Service is an interesting kind of boom and bust agency. At the end of each year, we find ourselves with a lot of funds we didn't expect. And if we're creative about that, we can think of ways to bring on student support through our university partners. In the Forest Service, we've developed a new partnership that allows us to bring ORISE fellows, really talented people who can do short to long-term research, science translation, science communications. And then new partnerships. Lee's a great example of that. Working with our university partners opens up a whole new world of funding through National Science Foundation and other partners that wouldn't normally be able to support federal agencies. We also have new capacity in the Washington office. We have a national program leader for social science research, which is the first time that position's been filled in years. And Kinley Kim, the national program leader, one of her first moves was to go interview all the relevant program managers and federal funding agencies like EPA, NASA, National Science Foundation, and see how she can start getting Forest Service and other land management agencies' social science research priorities more prominently featured on the agenda. So, and I think this is the most important message of all, and I think we're already doing that. We've heard it's tell the value proposition of social science research and cultivate champions inside and outside the agency. And I think today we saw several forest supervisors, Tracy's still here, they're agency leaders who are dedicated to helping us move from an agency that recognizes the vision of truly serving people to an agency that also has the capacity to achieve that vision. So, in the short term, we may be able to have more interdisciplinary positions, better use the capacity that we already have. But in the longer term, we're actually going to have to make the decisions to, instead of hiring someone with solely natural resource expertise, that we hire people with social and natural resource expertise, or just social expertise on both the research and management side. And we need champions inside and outside the agency to help us do that. So last point is, see change and opportunity. The changing social landscape and the changing management drivers are, in some situations, creating untenable stress on folks because there's just so much demand for the research that we produce and to change how we do management, and they're not yet the people to do it. But some of these changes, like the new forest planning rule, as far as I can tell, it's actually driving retirements. Every time I ask a forest about how they're doing with forest planning, I hear a litany of retirements that have slowed it down, and that may be some of those people just were at a stage of their career they wanted to retire, or they just didn't feel up to the challenge of really, truly dealing with a whole new model of public engagement. And so with those retirements, it's an opportunity to bring in new skills, new ways of thinking, broader backgrounds, and just different types of people who can really address the wicked challenges of, the 21st century Forest Service, which we had heard described so well by the speakers of this morning.
Well, thank you,
All right, thanks.
Very much. Appreciate it.